Hi, second period. Happy Wednesday. Chapter 30 is called A Story Bought, A Story Sold. Molly stood in the market, half wanting to drop her basket and run. What was it about Hester that made her so uncomfortable? I ain't avoiding you, she said, stepping in front of Kip. I just been busy. Busy avoiding me, you mean? The woman gave a good-hearted chuckle and moved closer. Her hurdy-gurdy was slung over her shoulder, and it knocked against the side as she walked, releasing an ugly cord with each step. How many times have you come to market, and not once did you ask after old Hester Kettle? Why, it's enough to hurt a girl's feelings. Molly felt fairly certain that it would take more than that to hurt Hester Kettle's feelings. She wasn't even sure people that old had feelings. The woman peered into Molly's basket as if it were her own. Buying groceries, I see. She grabbed a pea pod from the basket and ate it before Molly could stop her. Molly pulled the basket away. We're trying to, she said, only folks ain't making it easy for us. She snuck an irritated glance at the rows of stalls behind them. Kip chimed in. Just 'cause our master's rich don't mean we are. Moll's here'll be in a good bit of trouble if she don't come home with a full basket. The woman nodded, rubbing her earlobe. Perhaps old Hester can help you there. Molly gave a smile that she hoped was polite. Unless you've got a stack of banknotes in your pack of yours, I doubt it. Leave the notes for the bankers, the woman said. There's more currency in the world than pounds and pennies, especially for a storyteller. You wait and see. She tapped her nose and stepped over to a baker who was selling loaves and rolls. Molly had already tried buying something from this man. Even his day-olds have been too expensive. Ho there, Tolliver, Hester called in the casual tone of an old friend. She gestured to Molly and Kip. How much are you charging these two pups for a loaf of your best rye? The man looked from Hester to Molly. I told him 4 pence, he said. 4 pence, she whistled. That's some fancy bread. There must be flecks of gold in the dough, or maybe it sings as you chew it. It's regular bread, he said, looking a bit more uncomfortable, and there's the regular price. Perhaps it is. She leaned against the stall. But what if I was to tell you these two here were my kinsmen? What price would you tell them then? The man shifted his weight. Well then, Hester, I suppose the price would be 2 pence. Tolliver, she said reproachfully. For 2, he stammered. You didn't let me finish. 2 pence for 2 loaves. That's what I was going to say, honest. Hester grinned broadly. That's what I thought. She nodded to Molly, who paid for 4 loaves and quickly put them in her basket, before the man changed his mind. The woman turned back to the baker and leaned close. Now, Tolly, you run and tell every other farmer and good-for-naught here that these 2 get the Hester Kettle price and not a pip more. And if I hear of any more chiselings, I'll be forced to tell a tale or 2 about how you spike your flour with ground-up cat bones. Molly was fairly certain that the business about cat bones was not true, but from the man's face it seemed that, true or not, the threat was credible. No need for that, Hester. I'll do as you say. He smiled at Molly and Kip, and when he spoke his voice had a note of forced kindness. And any friend of Hester's is a friend of the Hollow. If you pair would be kind enough to watch my store, I might not notice if a few of these there biscuits went missing. He hung his apron and started toward the butcher across the way. Hester watched the man with a satisfied smile. You heard the fellow, she said, gesturing to the unguarded shelf of biscuits. Eat your fill. What's so funny, Sophie? Kip apparently did not need to be told twice. He hobbled past Molly and stuffed a biscuit into his mouth before she could stop him. Molly hated the idea of owing this woman anything. You lied to that man, she said, not touching a biscuit. She had half a mind to return the loaves as well. And when did I do that? Hester asked, stuffing a few biscuits into the bird cage strapped to her back. I might have promised to tell a tale in the future, but that's hardly the same thing as a lie. You told him we was your kinsmen. Why, that bit's True, she pointed an accusing biscuit at Molly. I can tell a fellow storyteller when I see one. That makes us kin enough. Malls is a storyteller, all right, Kip said through crumbs. A great one. Whatever folks pay you for stories, I bet they'd pay my sister double. Molly felt her cheeks burn. She didn't like Kip talking about her like she was special. Even more, she didn't like him comparing her to this old croon. There's nothing so great about me, she said. I'm just a servant, and you're just a beggar. Hester shook her head. Don't confuse what you do with who you are, dearie. Besides, there's no shame in humble work. Why, Aesop himself, the king of storytellers, was a slave his whole life. Never drew a free breath, yet he shaped the world with just 3 small words. There once was. And where are his great masters now? Rotting in tombs, if they're lucky. But Aesop, he still lives to this day, dancing on the tip of everyone's tongues that's ever told a tale. She winked at Molly. Think of that next time you're scrubbing floors. Molly had of course heard of Aesop, but she hadn't known anything about him being a slave. She doubted it was true, and even if it was, it didn't change the ugly facts of her own life. We're grateful for your help with the bread, ma'am, she said, taking Kip by the shoulder, but we should get moving before sundown. There's plenty of blue left in the sky, the woman said. Besides, we have business, you and me. You may recall promising me a story about a certain house in the Sour Woods. The woman folded her arms together, perhaps indicating that she was willing to fight for the story if need be. Molly hesitated. She could feel Kip watching her, waiting to hear what she said. If it were up to him, he would probably tell the woman everything. Molly, however, did not trust Hester Kettle. Behind the smiles and winks and dearies, there was an edge to the woman that made her uncomfortable. Something dark and crafty that lurked just behind the eyes. What was it Hester really wanted? Afraid there's not much to tell, Molly shrugged. It's a big old house, lots of dust and cobwebs, lots of chores, nothing too strange. Nothing too strange? The woman took a step closer. Tell me, what's the chore exactly that makes a young girl's hair shrivel up and her face go pale? Molly shifted her weight. She'd been careful to tuck her hair under her cap, but apparently she had not been careful enough. She looked back to Kip, who nodded to her, urging her to tell the truth. I'm just tired, she said, standing tall. A little sick with fever, maybe, nothing more. The woman shifted. I know all about your fevers. She glared at Molly, her eyes full of something mean. It's plain you know something, and it's plainer you refuse to tell it. Very well. I'm not one to grovel. You can keep your story, means you're less kin than I suspected. She bowed to Kip. Watch out for chores, little man, lest you wind up like your sister. She adjusted the weight of her pack and turned around. Molly watched the woman move away from them, her collection of junk swinging back and forth with each step. Her relief was mingled with the feeling of regret. Why didn't she want this woman to know about the house and the tree? Why didn't she want to tell her about the night man? It ain't fever, Kip called out. The woman stopped walking. Kip, Molly hissed. Kip glared at her. You promised to tell her, Malls. If you won't do it, I will. She hobbled toward the woman, who was now watching him with keen interest. There's some kind of spirit who haunts the house at night, he said. He's making everyone sick and pale, just like my sister. Molly grabbed his arm. That's enough, Kip. She wanted to drag him away, to cover his mouth and make him stop telling this woman things. Kip pulled away. And there's a tree, a great big horrible tree. Every night the man feeds and cares for it. Is that so? The old woman was watching Kip with a look that Molly could only describe as hunger. Molly put a hand on her brother's shoulders, but she did not stop him. Kip hopped closer, swallowing. You know every story there is around these parts. So tell us, do you know one about a man in a tree? The woman looked at Kip and then at Molly. As a matter of fact, I do. Chapter 31 is called The Legend of the Night Gardner. You'll have to wait until tomorrow to hear what Hester has to say about the Night Gardner. Have a good day.